The Chargers offense looked much better on Sunday, led by Justin Herbert, throwing the ball more as the Chargers pulled off a huge win in Denver for the first time since 2018.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year now as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. It's always much better on a winning night when we get to do a late night version of the Locked On Chargers podcast. But to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And David, tonight we get to talk about a big win.
Big time win, and it's always great because the Chargers have had a hard time finding a way to pick up a win. We've seen a lot of the time them trying to snatch defeat within the jaws of victory many different times. The Chargers go out there, they dominate most of this football game, and they come out with a massive win and a division win to boot.
Yeah, and there's definitely some things to nitpick, but overall, the offense looked good. The defense definitely overcame some adversity with the guys they had going in and out of the lineup as well. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. But David, at the end of the day, the Chargers get a big win. They were favored by 3. They end up winning by a touchdown in a game that I don't necessarily think was as close as the final score kind of makes it seem. I mean, they would have had to come up with a huge onside kick, and I think one of 13 have been actually recovered by the team trying to do it so far in the NFL this season with the new rules. But either way, much better performance offensively. You snap an 8-game losing streak on the road in the division. Brandon Staley went his entire, career as the Chargers head coach without winning in Denver. So even though there are some things that we'll get into that can be better, like this is a big win. Getting back over 500, going on the road in Mile High, getting that win there, and also having a lead in the fourth quarter and protecting it. Those are all big things. This is a big game for the Chargers.
It is. There's a lot of really positive developments. I know it wasn't a complete, 60 minutes of football, but there's a couple things that definitely, pointed the arrow in the right direction. The running game back on track. The Chargers were able to sustain drives. They had 4 drives of 9+ plays in each of those drives, including one drive of 20 plays, which was the first time that has happened since 2001. So that's a big time Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh style of drive that kind of accents this game. So, and also another thing to point out is they had a lot less penalties, only 3 penalties in the game. So cleaner football, more sustained drives, and better on offense, just overall. So a lot of, I think, things that were pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think I had this game, 20-16 Chargers. So this is kind of how I expected it to play out. Some garbage time points for the Broncos at the end as they tried to close the gap. And definitely the Chargers took advantage of the Broncos' best defensive player, Pat Surtain II, going out early in the game.
Of course.
You know who doesn't feel bad about that? The Chargers, who had huge key players going in and out for them the entire game and still found a way to fight through it. Like, these are the 50-50 games. These are the coin flip games that you hope that someone like a Jim Harbaugh can kind of tip the scales and win you games like this that you often lost in the past. So I understand why some people are upset with some parts of this performance, but there's no doubt in my mind that this is a big win and this was a hard game to go out there and get. So I think one of the biggest things offensively that was really fun to see was it felt like more of a vintage Justin Herbert performance. He gets over 200 yards for the first time this season. We have a bold prediction on Friday's show. But yeah, 237 yards, 21 out of 34 passing, average 7 yards per throw. But I just thought he looked the healthiest since the ankle injury that he has looked so far. And I mean, man, there were some real dimes in this game. This is the closest we've seen to Justin Herbert fully healthy, I think, since the ankle injury. And I think that it paid off. And also Greg Roman had the faith in him and the faith in his health to let him sling it around a little bit more, which I love to see.
Yeah, I think it also showed in the play calling too, with them rolling him out and moving him around and kind of using more of his athleticism, which I do think is a part of Justin Herbert's game. But yeah, he was fantastic in this game. He completed passes to 9 different receivers. So he was doing what he does best, just finding the open man and putting it on him. And he had some good movement skills in the pocket. And yeah, I'm just happy that they were able to let him kind of throw the ball down the field, take some shots too. Even if they didn't pan out, they were at least being aggressive and they were moving the football and they were having a lot more success too. I mean, I think throwing the football helped them have a lot more success on third downs. They were 11 of 18 on third down in this game, which is good for over 60% completion. And I mean, them and their ability to stay in better down and distance situations and just throwing the football, I think allowed them to have, a lot more sustained drives and convert on those third downs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the second most anyone scored against this Denver team so far this season. So this is a tough defense to do that against. And Herbert was the main reason. But I mean, you think about the throw kind of fading away off his back foot against his zero blitz he made to Ladd McConkey on third down, and the trust he showed in Ladd McConkey there to be able to throw that ball up. You think about the roll down to the right, throwing it to Kimani Vidal down the sideline, a beautifully lofted pass over the linebacker that he runs in for his first career touchdown. And also, I mean, even the deep ball to, Simi Fehoko, who had to step up with Ladd McConkey in and out of the lineup. Quentin Johnston, obviously playing hindered with an ankle injury, I think was what was reported. You also had guys like Trey Pipkins and Rashawn Slater getting in and out of the lineup. So I think all of those things combined, like you take all of that into account, it's like, yeah, this is a good offensive performance against the team that gave up the least passing yards out of any team that the Chargers have played so far this year. Arguably the hardest test they've had so far this year. And Justin Herbert did what he did. I mean, I think his game was actually better than what the stat line would tell you. I think the offense probably had a little bit better of a day than the stat line would tell you, or even the points were close to doing more in this game. But I did think the other big part of it was getting the running game back going a little bit and sustaining those drives like you talked about. I mean, the running game wasn't perfect, but it looked a lot better. And you just need it to not be a disaster, right? Yeah. For the game, they end up going for 3.7 yards per carry up, but they get 131 yards. Like, it was effective. They still broke off some chunk plays every once in a while. They didn't take too many negative plays in the running game. And it's like, I didn't think I'd be clamoring for 3.7 yards per carry as a team, but it worked well enough and they threw well enough with it. And that's how you don't have a 20 play drive if you're not running the football better than we saw them the last couple of weeks. I mean, we're talking about a team that hadn't surpassed 70 rushing yards since week 2. So to see this rushing performance, to see J.K. Dobbins do what he did in this game, I think is hugely encouraging for this offense as well.
Yeah, Justin Herbert was excited to get his both of his tackles back. J.K. Dobbins was excited as well, and I think they definitely played a factor in his performance in this game as well. 25 rushes for 96 yards, 3.81 yards per carry, a long of 20. So he did have an explosive rush in this contest, and of course that touchdown where he reached the ball just across and broke the plane and scored. And it's good to see. It's another game. J.K. Dobbins healthy and staying healthy after these major injuries. I know it's been a positive sign, and this was a buy low candidate for the Chargers, and J.K. Dobbins proving again that he is putting his name in contention to be the running back of the future for this team.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens, right? A 1-year contract, obviously a running back, it's hard to know, what that contract is going to look like because the running back market has been so kind of, it's varied a lot. Like it feels like you have to be a certified star to get anything more than a 1-year deal for running backs right now to get close to double-digit millions. But yeah, taking out Justin Herbert's kneel downs, going for 131 yards overall for your running backs, I thought was awesome. I mean, just look at what this team wants to be. They want to be a team that can control the clock, control possession, and look at what the time of possession was in this game. The Chargers had the ball for 37 minutes and 23 seconds in this game. That means the Broncos only had it for 23 and a half minutes. That is what this offense wants to be. But there's still a lot of things they can clean up. But this is a lot closer to that. This, I think, gives you more optimism. And honestly, shout out to Greg Roman. There was much better play calls in this game. The Chargers did not punt in the first half. There's not many, times in the last few years we've been able to say that. I mean, maybe a couple of times it's happened. But, this was a really, really good first half. And it trailed off a little bit. And we'll talk about the Chargers getting cold in the second half. Only 3 second half points isn't nearly good enough. There's some reasons for it, and they still did some okay things in the second half. But I do want to talk about the defense, because the defense, once again, going into this game, missing 2 of their 3 starting corners, going into this game, missing Joey Bosa, they still put together a heck of a performance for pretty much 90% of this game, but they had trouble closing the door a little bit. So we're going to talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Hims because, guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare, providing you access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. All you have to do, answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment options. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See the website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. I also need to tell you guys about Hillsdale College. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning of history and the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and so much more. And this is something that you can do absolutely for free just because you want to learn, and you can do it at your own pace because all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, and so much more. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. David, the Chargers, I thought, also played very, very well defensively. I think especially in the first half. I mean, you pitch a shutout, you do what that to that Denver offense, what you were hoping they would do, right? You turn over Bo Nix early, and what did we say? Like, it doesn't even have to be his fault. Tip a ball up in the air, bat a pass, do something, and it still could wreck his confidence, and it seemed like it did a little bit. Overall, Jesse Minter's defense forces 2 turnovers in this game. They pitch a shutout in the first half, and I want to first talk about just the positives, because I think especially considering Asante Samuel Jr. goes from full participation at Thursday's practice, the last time we record a show, and then by the time we get to Sunday, he's on injured reserve, right? So not only are you missing Jasir Taylor going into this game, you're also missing Asante Samuel Jr., who's been your starter on the outside. You also have Christian Fulton, who had to leave this game a couple different times with an injury and tried to fight through it. But you had really young players out there making contributions. You don't have Joey Bosa to go and do what they did for most of this game, David. I thought was very impressive.
At halftime, Bo Nix' stat line was 3 for 10 for 22 yards.
Yeah.
That was it. The Broncos had 60 yards of total offense at halftime. The Chargers were thoroughly dominant in the first half. They barely let the Broncos cross the 50-yard line. And, yeah, overall, you look at the stats for Bo Nix, they're pretty decent. 1934, 216 yards, a couple touchdowns, and that interception. But, I mean, the rushing stats weren't that impressive. I think, it was 6 carries for 61 yards, scramble yards for Bo Nix. And after that, it was 12 for 49. So I just feel like, as far as a performance is concerned, this was fantastic. They didn't allow the Broncos to score until there was 10 minutes left in this football game.
Yeah. I mean, it was garbage time, right? And garbage time turned into a little bit more serious later on. But yeah, I mean, first half shutout, you get the 2 turnovers. You gave up the most yards and points in the garbage time. And they were down the guys they were down. I mean, you also have to think about the fact that probably neither of those touchdowns should have counted. Right? The first touchdown, you have a huge holding call that's missed on Khalil Mack that ends up being a wide open Troy Franklin in the back of the end zone. That's not an offense that you can just say, okay, well, they would have scored anyways. No, they would have gotten pushed back 10 yards and would have had a situation where, yeah, maybe they have to settle for a field goal there.
Blatant hold.
Maybe they go for it on 4th down and don't get it. But you put them into a much worse conversation if you don't miss that blatant hold, the dude having his arm around Khalil Mack's neck. And we don't usually complain about penalties, but that one was just so blatant. The second touchdown, Courtland Sutton did not catch it. Like that was not a touchdown in the back of the end zone. As he came down and was completing the catch, the ball hit the ground and he was out of bounds. There's nothing you can tell me that tells you that was a catch. It was a situation. To me, what happened is this. They called it on the field a touchdown because they wanted the ability to go review it because every scoring play is reviewed. So they said, okay, well, if we call it a touchdown, then at least we can change it if it ends up not being a touchdown. The problem with that is when you have a close play like that, which to me wasn't that close, you end up saying, well, there wasn't enough to overturn it. And that is the danger of just calling it a touchdown just for the sake of being able to review it. Because then if you can't find the necessary evidence, then you're not going to end up overturning it, even if it's the wrong call. So both of those touchdowns, obviously, to me, maybe they still get them, maybe they don't, but they're put in much worse situations. They didn't need to get helped out like that. I think the other thing is, too, when you're looking at what the defense did well, you're right. Against the running backs, they did very well in this game and put the Broncos in a lot of bad situations on third down. And on third down, they held Denver to a 3 of 11, which is 27%. When things started to get close a little bit and they started closing the gap, they had a huge play, a 2-point conversion that would have cut it to an 8-point game. And Denzel Perryman absolutely shut the door on it. That kept it a 10-point game.
That was beautiful.
Late in the game. Hey, if they gave that up there and it ended up being, they're going down for the potential tying drive on that last one where they settled for a field goal to try to get the ball back, maybe it's a different story. But I don't think it takes away from what the defense did most of this game with the guys they had out there. And I think, David, as always, Khalil Mack is out there showing out and just being the best defender on this team. They needed him to be that, especially with a lot of young players, and he showed up on Sunday.
Khalil Mack racked up a couple of tackles, but he had 5 pressures in this game. So I think when you look at it, it's not all about the sacks. It's all about causing some havoc and getting in the quarterback's face and making him get off his spot. The Chargers did a great job of that. They did not bring Bo Nix down a whole lot,
not enough.
But they did pressure him a ton. According to PFF, the Chargers racked up 23 pressures in this game. And Bo Nix was able to scramble out of it and keep them moving forward in those certain circumstances. But the pressure didn't always get home, but it definitely affected. And what did we talk about before this game? Bo Nix had a completion percentage of about 43% when he was under pressure. The Chargers did everything they could to make that stat come to life on the field, and it did.
Yeah, I'd say everything except for just finishing it, right? Because that was absolutely a big problem in this game. Shout out to Alohi Gilman as well, right? 10 tackles, pass breakup, a sack in this game. I thought he had a much better game than we've seen from him. Maybe the best game he's had this year. But that was the big part of them not shutting the door, was just not being able to finish. Because if you have one thing you can take away from this Chargers defense or hold against them in this game, even with the touchdowns and whether they should have counted or not, you put them in position to go score, right? And that's on the defense. And you had multiple chances to shut the door on this game much earlier, right? So did the offense. They're not, totally acquitted in this either. But the Chargers missed several sacks that would have ended this game, right? Multiple fourth downs that could have gotten off the field and ended this game. Go to 4th and 5, 6 minutes left in this game. Chargers blitz. Derwin has a free shot at Bo Nix. He overruns the play. Junior Colson now has a shot to stop Bo Nix. He gets juked out enough to let Bo Nix go get the first down. Attack the player. Attack the ball. Be fundamental. Be in the right spot. Junior Colson was in the right spot. He needs to go get the guy there, not wait for him to see what he wants to do and make a move on you. So that was one opportunity. 4th and 2. They let Bo Nix get out of the pocket. It makes the linebackers run up to try to get him because he had been running well. And then it turns into a 37-yard, fling. He just throws in. It turns into a long catch and run. They had chances, right? They allowed points on 3 consecutive drives, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, 16 points on the last 3 drives the Broncos had in this game. So there was a lot that was good in this game. They were dealing with a lot, and they're always going to be, seemingly. But there were chances they had to shut the door and didn't.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I think that this game was a lot closer than it ever should have been, and it kind of puts a damper on their performance because this game was 23-0 for 50 minutes of this football game, and then towards the end of the game they give up a ton of yards in the fourth quarter, and it kind of changes the way that you look at this contest. But overall, one kind of really cool stat here from Chris Rim is the Chargers have allowed less than 21 points in each of their first 5 games for only the 3rd time in franchise history.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
Jesse Minter has been a true mad scientist through the first 5 games, and it kind of makes me a little upset because I don't want him to keep doing so well, because the more performances he puts out like this, the quicker he's going to get a head coaching opportunity and he's going to be gone, which I hope the Chargers find some way to build some kind of succession plan into, Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, where he just takes over when Jim's done?
Yeah, it feels like you can just so tangibly see him elevating the parts that he has defensively. When you have rookies like Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart in there making contributions, when you have, this defense that is battered right now, playing at the level that it's playing at, giving Justin Herbert his best defense he's ever had through 5 games, and it's not even close, it is really good, right? The biggest thing is, though, you're going to get in a situation with teams where you're not up by as much in the second half, not up by as much in the fourth quarter, where you're already up 23-0, where you're going to have to be a little bit better than this. And I thought the biggest thing towards the end of this game and why the things opened up a little bit was just the inability. I mean, people will say that they went soft. Yeah, maybe there was a little bit softer coverage. They were getting after them on 3rd and 4th downs. Like, they were going to try to win this game defensively, and the pressure just wasn't getting there, which is leading to big chunk plays down the field. I didn't think Jesse Minter tried to go super soft towards the end of this game. I just think that the blitzes and the pressure just were not getting home, and when they did, they weren't able to make the sack. They let Bo Nix get out and take over the game in a sense, and credit to Bo Nix, who had some pretty inescapable situations he found a way to escape from. So some things to clean up, but overall a positive performance. And once again, David, the offense doesn't get acquitted in this because, again, they struggle in the second half. They only score 3 points in the second half once again, and it has to be a little bit better. I'm not as concerned as I was. I do think this is still a positive for the offense, but there's some things they have to clean up. And we also have to shout out a couple of rookies that had some big plays and some big moments. All that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First of all, I want to tell you guys about PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's definitely David's #1 daily fantasy sports app because he's been winning money with PrizePicks. But PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One of the other great things that you guys have coming up for you are the promotions like Taco Tuesday that can lead to big payouts. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So you can set your NFL lineup on Tuesday if you want to, and you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks. And it's also the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Yes, the Chargers game's over, but it doesn't mean you can't get on the action tonight. I mean, you could literally win with just Josh Allen if you wanted to, deciding if he'll have more or less than 203.5 passing yards and combine that with more or less than 34.5 rushing yards, which both seem pretty attainable. That's as easy as it is, right? Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. It's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. David, I do want to talk about the offense disappearing a little bit in the second half because the Chargers are coming off of back-to-back games where they got shut out in the second half, and it was just really, really hard to watch. And there were moments of this game that you felt that same sensation, even though I think it was a little bit different in this game. Still, 3 points in a game you're up 20-0 at halftime is not enough. You had multiple chances to go put the game away, and you just didn't. But thank you, everyone, especially in a late night edition, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL, which now has 2 shows, one in the morning with Tyler the Madman rolling, and you can also kick back later on with my boy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop with all the local experts on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. But David, let's talk about the Chargers offense disappearing a little bit in the second half, because I do think that there are fair criticisms of this game. I mean, shut out in back-to-back second halves leading up to this. I still don't think it was as bad. I mean, one of the 3 and outs, Denver tips the ball that alters a throw to Ladd McConkey. If he ends up making the catch on that instead of it getting deflected and he drops it, he probably gets 20-plus yards and it changes the complexion of that drive. You're able to run 3 more plays. You might even get in a scoring position, so it's hard to say. They still did try to take some shots, but just couldn't sustain anything much outside of that field goal drive. You think about the shot they took in the game when they were way up and they tried to throw it to Ladd McConkey down the sideline. They were still taking some shots, David, but when you can't score like that, the margin for error just gets so much more thin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that it wasn't like through large stretches of the first half and the second half like it was in previous games. So I feel like we have seen some improvement in this game. It just hasn't been 4 quarters of full offensive performance. We have not seen the complete performance yet. 104 yards in the second half after 246 yards in the first half for the Chargers offense, just to put that in perspective. Outside of 1 field goal drive where they had a good drive, 11 plays, 63 yards, they had 41 yards on 5 possessions and 4 punts. including a couple of kneel downs in their other 5 possessions that they had.
Right. You wouldn't count
half.
the last position on the
right.
possession when they're just
down.
kneeling the ball down. But the other 3 possessions, yeah. Or the,
it was just bad. Yeah, it was just was a couple of 3 and outs and not a lot of sustained offense and punting the ball back to the Denver Broncos. So, yeah, it's gotten better, but it's not where it needs to be by any means.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, the 3 and outs are killer in those situations. You do take some time off the clock, on the field goal drive. But at that point, you're just trying to put the game away. You're not necessarily just trying to run clock. I did think that once the Broncos cut it 23-13, not going 3 and out after that was still big, right? You get J.K. Dobbins' 8-yard carry. You get a first down right after that. He ends up hitting a 20-yard run on that one, right? Gives them some breathing room. Changes the field position, which let J.K. Scott just absolutely place a perfect coffin corner punt. That ends up going out of bounds, ends up getting stopped inside the 5-yard line, which was huge in that situation. But I also think just like they end up getting a couple first downs. They made Denver burn all of their timeouts. They still took 3 minutes off the clock. That's a little bit different than just going 3 and out. Like, obviously, I'd still love to get points there. I didn't love that once they got that 20-yard run, they seemed content with just running the ball right into the middle and kind of just taking no gain, not really trying hard to get themselves into field goal range, which at that point puts you up 3 scores, right, and absolutely takes them completely out of the game, and it's over. So I wish they had a little bit more killer instinct there, but, like, you can't be mad necessarily about games like this. These are games the Chargers have lost in the past. These are games the Chargers would have gone 3 and out there.
No question.
Even more potentially than they did. So there are still some improvements. This team, as they play better teams, will have to be able to find better ways to put their foot on the throat of their opponents. But, like, we see good teams not be able to blow teams out all the time. It's what the Kansas City Chiefs have done the entire season this year, right?
Yep.
So having Jim Harbaugh being able to have a game like this where stuff starts to go sideways and you still get the win is still super valuable. So even though there are some things to fix offensively, I think overall this is a positive day for the offense. The play calling was much better. You went an entire half without having to punt. You were able to do enough in the second half, put some points up, find a couple ways to be able to make them burn their timeouts, take basically a full possession. That takes a whole possession away from them, right?
Yeah.
If you go 3 and out right there and you give it back to them, they score, they still have plenty of time with 3 timeouts to get back into this game and go potentially tie or win the game. So I still think there were minor improvements there, but I do also want to shout out a couple of rookies, David, who made some big plays. Gus Edwards now on injured reserve, which kind of came as a surprise after the bye week as well. But what it did mean was Kamani Vidal got in the game. And also one of the things that Asante Samuel Jr. missed in this game and Jasir Taylor missed in this game meant was that Tarheeb Still was going to get a lot of snaps in this game. We talked about him on the preview show. Both of those guys we talked about, both of those guys came away with some really big moments in this win.
I was so happy to see that. I'm a huge Tarheeb Still fan, and I feel like this guy had all of the things that you wanted, all the ingredients necessary to be a very good slot corner in the National Football League. And he had one big play in this one that prevented the touchdown. He had to go play tight coverage on a deep ball, and at the very perfect time, he was able to get his head around and knock that ball away and prevent a big time play. And that was a huge play in this game. Those are the type of plays where you bring in, your rookies and you just want to see them be able to make any kind of impact. That right there is a difference-making type of play. And then, of course, Kamani Vidal being able to take his very first touch in the National Football League and score a touchdown on his very first opportunity is a very, very cool story for a kid that, was drafted at the end of the draft in this one.
Yeah.
And
6th-round pick.
It's really, really good to see that. And for him to be able to score a touchdown, that's a huge play for a Chargers offense that was looking for another spark, another person to be able to come in and provide a big play. The rookie Kamani Vidal answers the call.
Yeah, and he wasn't great on the ground. I even though the Chargers' run game was better, I didn't think they were getting a ton of movement on the line. Like they found a few chunks here and there, but they didn't really dominate in the trenches. There wasn't a ton of room for Kamani Vidal, who averaged less than 3 yards per carry. But it is that one big moment that makes you happy about what the future could be with him. Also great in pass protection as well. But that's an awesome moment for him. Gets the Chargers on the board, gets a touchdown instead of a field goal. That's huge because, really, with the Chargers offense, like one of the things that killed them, if they just scored touchdowns every time they were in the red zone in this game, it's a completely different game, right? You're talking about 8 more points that they have in this game. You're talking about winning a game 31. They probably don't ever even sniff that, the Broncos. So that's the big part of it. So to get that play, for him to beat a linebacker, stay in bounds for a touchdown, making the catch, and really a fingertip full extension catch. And then Tarheeb Still on a 3rd down defensively early in the game, where the Broncos got shut out. This could have changed a lot. Like if the Broncos get that spark early, it could have went multiple different ways. Not only could he have just given up a big play that turns into a touchdown right there on third down in a one-on-one situation, he also could have very easily interfered with the receiver and gotten a penalty that puts them right there at that spot. So for him to have the wherewithal, because it was a slightly underthrown ball, to not make contact with the wide receiver, to play through the hands of the wide receiver once the ball got there because he knew he couldn't get his head around, it was just such a big play, a very mature play for a rookie that has grown a lot since college because he was a little grabby, had bad tendencies at sometimes in college, right? That was a huge play. And just to have these guys making moments, Cam Hart has a couple big tackles in this game. I thought he looked more physical than the last time we saw him. That Junior Colson struggled at times in this game, but having Joe Alt back was also a huge boost to this offense. So this first class for Joe Ortiz is looking awesome. The Chargers took a lot of day 3 running backs that didn't pan out under Tom Telesco, right? I mean, 3 in a row. Isaiah Spiller, Josh Kelly, and Larry Roundtree. And Kamani Vidal looks like he could kind of break that trend of getting a day 3 running back that can make an impact. So overall, a hugely positive performance by the Chargers. It was a very weird game, so to come away with it with a win, get to 3-2 is huge. Jim Harbaugh leaves this game in the medical tent, has to go in the locker room because of heart arrhythmia, right? He's saying, hey, it's called an atrial flutter that he had to leave the game for. This was just a weird game, but he'd also said, I'm 2-0 with arrhythmia. So wishing the coach the best. Hoping he gets checked up and make sure he's healthy because I think we saw in this game some of the impact of what the Jim Harbaugh era is going to bring. But still so much to get to from this game. No penalties was a huge part of it. Also some other standout performances, which we'll get to tomorrow because it's Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. So if you guys want to hit us up for that, hit us up at Lockedon LAC with your buy or sell or your just biggest overreaction or storyline you want us to talk about, or you can call into 323-524-7924 and call into the voicemail line and leave your 30-second buy or sell there. To make sure you guys never miss a show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as on all of our social media. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page as well. Thank you guys for checking out tonight's show. Make sure to follow me and David where we post the show every day as well. You can find me at Dan Talk Sports on Twitter and David Drugmeyer at DroTalkSD. But hey, big win. Big slate of games, Monday Night Football next week where you can get to 4-2. You're heading in the right direction again, right? These are the games you need to stack up, beat these teams you should beat coming up on the schedule. But it started with this one, a place that Justin Herbert had never won, a place the Chargers have very much struggled in, and they found a way to get it done. So now we'll be back with you guys tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.